Good morning, it's Gene from maverickstar. This is interesting. I thought I'd share with you. The French people have burned the tax office in the city of Bron in France. So, this is the start of what we're going to start to see a lot more from now on. And, you can understand why they've done it. I mean, just ask yourself the question, what do you get back for your tax money that you pay? And when you consider how much money that you're paying and handing over to the governments, they're giving you very little back. Are your roads better yesterday than there was 4 weeks ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? Is the infrastructure around your city and town improving? Of course not. And that's why people are resorting to this. You're not going to see it on mainstream media because what they're trying to do is contain it. But this is information that should be widely spread, and people should know that that what is happening now is people have had enough. They've been pushed to the limit. You look around the cities and just think for a few moments. You'll soon come to the conclusion that they are deteriorating, decaying, and going rotten by the day. And they're not sustainable places unless everybody takes their part and does their bit. And people are right now deciding enough is enough. What's going to happen inevitably, if you just think about it logically, is that we're going to start to see an exodus of cities all around the world. It's already, the cards are down on the table that are causing it. When you go into a city and you can't afford the rent, or the credit system won't allow you to borrow money because you're probably, like a lot of people, don't want to take on debt, and the system is geared up that if you don't take debt, your credit rating goes down. And that means you can't get a mortgage, which is cheaper than renting. Well, rent prices around the world have skyrocketed, as well as energy prices. The bare essentials. It didn't take a rocket scientist to work out, that if you want to continue being a greedy billionaire, you will align yourself in the businesses of things that people are dependent every day. And a couple of weeks ago I was talking about this, about our species, the human beings who claim to be one of the most intelligent things on this planet, that walk on this planet, have made themselves barred from natural resources. We can't today just take ourselves and our family out to the countryside, build our home and live there, and become self-sufficient, build a homestead. Can't do it, because pretty much every square inch of this planet has been brought up already. And a good example is how much land Bill Gates actually owns. Just before we move on, I know the video is going to be slightly out of sync. I'll show you a few of these photos of this tax office that burnt down. And like I said, they're not going to put this on mainstream media. They don't want people getting the idea that that this is an acceptable behaviour. And that's why you won't see it on your mainstream media. But tell me, when you focus on the stories that mainstream media are putting out there for you to digest later on, just ask yourself the question, why are you not seeing stories like this? It's all part of the containment of information and the control of citizens, and not just in France, the UK, the rest of Europe, Canada, America, Australia. It's everywhere. This is what the game is all about. And if you're late in the game in understanding what is going on, and you don't realise that it's just a matter of time before there is a mass exodus from cities like New York, London and places like that, because first of all, there is no jobs because technology has removed them. I'll give you a good example. How many cashiers do you see in the supermarkets now? Well, you're not going to see. I mean, you probably got two cashiers per the whole supermarket. The rest are itemised tills or self-service tills, and you're going to see even the larger supermarkets at some point, close the doors because of home deliveries now is becoming more frequent for people. So, these are the things that we're going to start seeing more of, and it's just clarification of a city which is on its last legs and is dying basically. And this is what I'm talking about. When you look at just how much land Bill Gates owns, you can see why millions and millions of people in the United States are not going to get a look in, because exactly how much quantity of land one single person owns in the United States amounts to hundreds of thousands of acres all across 50 odd states of America. So if one person is able to buy so much land, and Bill Gates is not just the only person. You've got that guy who owns Amazon. Can't think of his name at the moment off the top of my head, but he's another guy that's buying up large quantities of land, and they know they've got information that a majority of the people, or 98% of the population, don't have, because they have sat down and worked it out what's going on, so that they are moving their assets and money into land, because they know that land's not being created anymore, and at some point these cities are going to start failing, if not already for a lot of people. So most people are faced with the same situation. They've probably got a couple of £100,000 worth of student debts that they're hoping to pay off, and in order to do that they need to obtain a job. But the problem is we've already, in my view, peaked at a certain level of technology where the requirement of people that are leaving college and universities already are becoming obsolete as soon as they roll off the production line, so that they are now faced with the burden of $100,000, $200,000 worth of student loans and debt that they can't pay off because they can't even get into a job. And even if they could, they're not going to be in a position to get a good paid job because of the competition. There are lots of people with the same qualifications being rolled off the production line from many universities, and we're not just focusing on the United States. This is a problem which is being reflected all around the world. There are multiple problems that people are facing now. Can you imagine rolling out of the university for that first day, and you're sending 20, 30 applications every week for jobs and not getting any luck? First of all, you're in competition, so you're prepared probably to take a slightly lower paid job till you can get your feet in the door, and everyone else is now undercutting each other with that. And the reality is you're not going to be able to pay rent, you're not going to be able to pay off them student loans, so you're facing penalisation from day one, and it's not going to get any better. It's like when we was talking about the limited number of cashiers in the shop and people that work in the background, the people that stock the shelves up, they're going to be out of work next because of large companies now are delivering free if you order over a certain amount, and it'll just end up where you won't have these superstores anymore. You're just going to have large warehouses and delivery drivers, and that means that there'll be even less people employed. I mean, we've got it already now. We've got doctors, scientists. This is not the first time I've mentioned it. Working menial jobs, low-paid jobs. I mentioned a month ago about the Nobel Prize winner, and his job now, he's give up on science completely. He's actually delivering to the airports people's luggage, and I mean, just think about that. how disgraceful is our system that is in place right now that allows, or can't position a person of somebody that has, rightfully earned a Nobel Prize. I'm not talking about the Al Gores or, Barack Obamas that have swindled a Nobel Peace Prize. We're talking about genuine scientists that deservedly merited a Nobel Peace Prize that are now, having to deliver luggage to the airport so that people can just go about their, travels. I think it's criminal. We're going to see a lot worse things coming. We focus a lot on, geomagnetics here at our observatory, but, you can't help but talk about these things because they're important. And, I like to give my personal opinion occasionally on these things, and in the hope that some people will listen and will probably steer themselves off the path of that oncoming train, that is on the track. We're on the track, we can see it coming down the track, and if we don't avoid, moving at some point, then, we're going to be hit by that train. And, what I'm trying to say is that these cities that most people live in are not sustainable, because you cannot grow your own food there, you cannot live off the land, and when you consider how many people that do live in cities that are slowly being priced out of them, they can't afford the rent, they can't afford the food, they can't get a job, it is only a matter of time. I just want to clarify something. I was travelling down the M40 here in the UK the other day, and there's a signpost, a big picture of a member of Parliament, and he's keeping track on how many of percentage of people that are claiming benefits here in the UK. That number is at 51%. That means the majority of people aren't contributing to the system anymore, and the lesser number are the ones that are keeping the support going for the majority. That is unsustainable, and it can't last much longer. So yes, worrying about the economy and the technological advancement at the point at which we're at right now are things I think that we should be thinking about. It's like I say, people are already starting to, accept the fact that these cities where the majority of people live, the majority of people have invested a great deal of their wealth in living in these cities, are starting to realise that at some point they're going to go stagnant, and they've already started to exit these cities. And we are going to see, I know it's a bit of a cliche to use the term a mass exodus because it sounds biblical, but that is what we're going to see on a global scale. And this shouldn't be too unacceptable for a majority of people, because this is what our ancient civilizations like the Mayans, the Egyptians, and even at the end of the Roman Empire were evacuating the status quo, the major systems that was in place, because the corruption levels was too high. We're back here today. How can people like Bill Gates be allowed to singly own so much of the United States like he does? How come Jeff Bezos is allowed to do it? How come Mark Zuckerberg, who owns or did own Facebook, it's called Meta now, isn't it? But how can they be allowed to be so powerful? How can just a few people own so much? Some of the things that we don't need to worry about, and that's largely thanks to the study of these things, which some people do worry about, and because we've took it upon ourselves to observe these things over the time, we can say what are the things and what are not the things that we should be concerned about. I can quickly go through a few of those if you want. So in short, there are a lot of things that we can be concerned about with things that we choose to worry about in our lives. The economy might be one, some people might be worried about solar data or some of the other anomalies that we cover on the website, like volcanic activity. But the information is there for anyone to come and see and find out for themselves. And the reason why we archive it is so that you can do a little bit of research yourselves and just go back over the time that we've been covering the majority of these anomalies and see for yourself whether there is cause for concern. Let's take, for example, volcanic activity. On average, 25 volcanoes around our planet is active and in eruption, and it's never changed largely over the last 10 years, but we've been recording the archive for at least 4 or 5 years now. And you can very quickly look at the archive at a specific that you're interested in and chart that information yourselves. If you go onto Earth Alpha at a glance, you can do this work yourself and figure out whether it's something that you should be concerned about. I'll just say this with regards to earthquakes and volcanic activity. It would be more of a concern if they stopped for me, because that would be an indication of a core solidification, perhaps something that took place on Mars, our neighbouring planet, thousands of years ago, and it would have been that solidification which shut down the magneto that generated Mars's magnetosphere and allowed it to have a gaseous atmosphere, which it no longer has today. And what that shows us is that our planet is not it could, what I'm trying to say is it could easily happen to another planet, including our own. And with us going through this geomagnetic reversal, the reason why we pay attention to it, whereas a lot of people, say 98% of the population, don't, is because we know the implications, and we try and share that information with like-minded people, as well as information on various other topics. So, that's where we are with this update. There's a link down there if you want to help support us. You can see in the description the link there where you can help, and it would be great if we could see a few more people want to help support what we do here at the observatory. We've been collecting data for a long period of time. It's sometimes a little sad when you see 10,000 viewers and just the amount of people that have supported on one hand, that have made a contribution to the work that we do. What we're trying to do is make it free for everybody, but with everything that is voluntary, it does require a few people to step up to that mark and support, because then others get to benefit from it. And what we don't really want to see is statistics like 51% of the UK's population are on benefits and 49% are the ones that are paying all the taxes. What we want to see is a little bit more community spirit, in the fact where people want to help others as well as themselves. And we are a unique website and YouTube channel in the fact that we don't just talk about these anomalies, we actually have equipment all around the world being sent back to us, the data, so we can process it for your benefit. That can only come if people with like minds come together, work together and share the burden of some of these tasks. Guys, I'll say what I usually do. You take care of your loved ones, and as always, bye for now.